Hey guys, it's me, Miss Norris, and today I'd like to share an exciting winter read aloud with you of the story Brave Irene. Brave Irene was written in 1986 by William Steig, and it tells the story of Irene and how she is trying to help her mother, but it isn't easy. Remember, as we're reading, if I point to you like this, you're going to say, dun, 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 to add just a little bit of drama to an already exciting story. If you're ready to get started, I'm ready to share the story with you. Here we go. Brave Irene. Now here on this first page, we see something called a dummy. And it's not being mean. A dummy is something that dressmakers use to hold a shape so that there's not anyone who has to stand and wait for someone to sew clothes on them for a really long time. So it's called a dummy, and people put fabric on there and it helps them to be able to sew. Oh, and here's a picture of somebody sewing right now. You can see that the dress is on the dummy, and it makes it seem like there's someone wearing the dress, even though there's no one there. Brave Irene. Mrs. Bobbin, the dressmaker, was tired and had a bad headache, but she still managed to sew the last stitches in the gown she was making. It's the most beautiful dress in the whole world, said her daughter Irene. The Duchess will love it. Oh, it is nice, her mother admitted, but Dumplin', it's for tonight's ball, and I don't have the strength to bring it. I feel sick. So, Mama has just finished making this dress for the Duchess. And a Duchess is kind of like a princess or a queen, a royal woman. And there's a ball tonight, but Mama just doesn't feel good. Oh, poor Mama, said Irene. I can get it there. No, Cupcake, I can't let you, said Mrs. Bobbin. Such a huge package, and it's such a long way to the palace. Besides, it's starting to snow. But I love the snow, Irene insisted. She coaxed her mother into bed, covered her with 2 quilts, and added a blanket at her feet. Then she fixed her some tea with lemon and honey and put more wood in the stove. With great care, Irene took the splendid gown down from the dummy and packed it in a big box with plenty of tissue paper. Dress warmly, Puddin', her mother called in a weak voice. And don't forget to button up. It's cold out there. And windy. Irene put on her fleece-lined boots, her red hat and muffler, her heavy coat, and her mittens. She kissed her mother's hot forehead 6 times, then once again made sure she was tucked in snugly, and slipped out with the big box, shutting the door firmly behind her. So Irene's playing nurse to her mama. She's put her in bed, given her some extra blankets. She's bringing her some tea with honey and lemon. That's good for your throat. And then she's packed up the dress with tissue paper and is getting ready to leave. It was really cold outside. Very cold. The wind whirled the falling snowflakes about, this way and that, and into Irene's squinting face. She set out on the uphill path to Farmer Benedict's sheep pasture. By the time she got there, the snow was up to her ankles, and the wind was worse. It hurried her along and made her stumble. Irene resented this, and the box was problem enough. Easy does it, she cautioned the wind. leaning back against it. So the wind is blowing so hard that it's pushing Irene along with it. And she's saying, "Hey, simmer down, wind." By the middle of the pasture, the flakes were falling thicker. Now the wind drove Irene along so rudely that she had to hop, skip, and go helter-skeltering over the knobbly ground. Cold snow sifted into her boots and chilled her feet. She pushed out her lip and hurried on. This was an important errand. When she reached Apple Road, the wind decided to put on a show. It ripped branches from the trees and flung them about, swept up and scattered the fallen snow, got in front of Irene to keep her from moving ahead. Irene turned around and pressed on backwards. So you can see, here's Irene, and the wind is being really rude to her and blowing in her face. And then it tried to get in front of her and stop her. So now Irene is walking backwards so that the wind isn't stopping her from where she's trying to go. "Go home," the wind squalled. "Irene, go home." "I will do no such thing," she snapped. "No such thing, you wicked wind." "Go home," the wind yodeled. "Go home," it shrieked. "Or else." For a short second, Irene wondered if she shouldn't heed the wind's warning. But no, the gown had to get to the Duchess. The wind wrestled her for the package, walloped it and twisted it and shook it and snatched it. But Irene wouldn't yield. "It's my mother's work," she screamed. Then, oh, whoa! The box was wrenched from her mittened grasp and sent bumbling along in the snow. Irene went after it. So the wind is telling her to just go home, Irene. And she says, "No, I will not." And then the wind is bothering her and yanks the package out of her hand, and Irene has to go chasing after it. And she's so cold. She pounced and took hold, but the ill-tempered wind ripped the box open. The ball gown flounced out and went waltzing through the powdered air with tissue paper attendants. Irene clung to the empty box and watched the beautiful gown disappear. Dun, dun, dun. How could anything so terribly wrong be allowed to happen? Tears froze on her eyelashes. Her dear mother's hard work, all those days of measuring, cutting, pinning, stitching, for this? And the poor Duchess. Irene decided she would have to trudge on with just the box and explain everything in person. So the wind has blown the box open, and the dress with the tissue paper has gone flying off. And Irene says, "This is way too important. I'm going to go tell the Duchess myself what happened." She went shuffling through the snow. Would her mother understand, she wondered, that it was the wind's fault and not hers? Would the Duchess be angry? The wind was howling like a wild animal. Suddenly, Irene stepped in a hole and fell over with a twisted ankle. Dun, dun, dun! She blamed it on the wind. Keep quiet, she scolded. You've done enough damage already. You spoiled everything. Everything! The wind swallowed up her words. She sat in the snow in great pain, afraid she wouldn't be able to go on. But she managed to get to her feet and keep on moving. It hurt. Home, where she longed to be, where she and her mother could be warm together, was far behind. It's gotta be closer to the palace, she thought. But where any place was in all this snow, she couldn't be sure. So she's walking along and she falls in a hole. Remember, she's chasing that dress, the gown. And she's twisted her ankle. And she realizes that it's closer to get to the palace than it is to get home. Even though the only thing she wants to do is go home and be with her mama. And because it's so snowy everywhere, everything looks the same and she's not sure if she knows where she's going. Dun, dun, dun! That's pretty scary, guys. She plowed on, dragging furrows with her sore foot. So she has to drag her foot because it hurts so much and it's making like a little ditch behind her. The short winter day was almost done. Am I still going the right way? She wondered. There was no one around to advise her. Whoever else there was in this snow-covered world was far, far away. And safe indoors, I might add. Even the animals in their burrows. She went plodding on. Soon, night took over. She knew in the dark that the muffled snow was still falling. She could feel it. She was cold and alone in the middle of nowhere. Irene was lost. Dun, dun, dun. She had to keep moving. She was hoping she'd come to a house, any house at all, and be taken in. She badly needed to be in someone's arms. The snow was above her knees now. She shoved her way through it, clutching the empty box. So remember, it's winter time and the days get dark early and she's out in the middle of nowhere and she's lost and it's cold and now it's dark too. And she says, I don't even know if I'm going to make it to the palace. I just want to find a house. Any house. She was asking how long a small person could keep this struggle up when she realized it was getting lighter. There was a soft glow coming from somewhere below her. She waded toward this glow and soon was gazing down a long slope at a brightly lit mansion. It had to be the palace. Irene pushed forward with all her strength and sloosh, thwomp, she plunged downward and was buried. She had fallen off a little cliff. Only her hat and the box in her hand stuck out above the snow. Even if she could call for help, no one would hear her. Her body shook. Her teeth chattered. Why not freeze to death, she thought, and let all these troubles end? Why not? She was already buried. So she's walking along and she notices that it's starting to get lighter. And she thinks, aha! And she sees that it's probably the palace. And then she falls and is buried. And all you can see is her hands and her head. So she was so hopeful and so close. And then so far away. Do you think anyone's going to find her? I'm not sure. I don't know if I could be brave in a story like this. And never see her mother's face again? Her good mother who smelled like fresh baked bread? In an explosion of fury, she flung her body about to free herself and was finally able to climb up on her knees and look around. How to get down to that glittering palace? As soon as she raised the question, she had an answer. She laid the box down and climbed aboard, but it pressed into the snow and stuck. She tried again, and this time, instead of climbing on, she leaped on. The box shot forward like a sled. The wind raced after Irene but couldn't keep up. In a moment, she would be with the people again, inside where it was warm. The sled slowed and jerked to a stop on the paving stones. The time had come to break the bad news to the Duchess. With the empty box clasped to her chest, Irene strode nervously toward the palace. So she was thinking about not being able to see her mama again, and she said, "Oh, no way!" And she hulked out and was able to get out of that snow. And then she decided to use that box as a sled. And the first time, it didn't work. But brave Irene didn't give up. She tried again. And this time, it worked. But she's not done being brave yet, folks. Now she has to go tell the Duchess some very bad news. Or does she? But then her feet stopped moving and her mouth fell open. She stared. She can't believe her eyes. Maybe this was impossible. Yet there it was, a little way off and over to the right, hanging on the trunk of a tree. The beautiful ball gown. The wind was holding it there. "Mama!" Irene shouted. "Mama, I found it!" She managed somehow, despite the wind's meddling, to get the gown off the tree and back in the box. And in another moment, she was at the door of the palace. She knocked twice with the big brass knocker. The door opened and she burst in. Remember, she is very cold and very hurt and very scared. But look at how magical that is, ladies and gentlemen. All of this just to find that the dress was being held up by the wind on a tree. And now she's knocking to get into the palace. And like I said, she just burst in, trying to warm up. She was welcomed by cheering servants and a delirious Duchess. They couldn't believe she had come over the mountain in such a storm all by herself. She had to tell the whole story, every detail. And she did. Then she asked to be taken right back to her sick mother. But that was out of the question, they said. The road that ran around the mountain wouldn't be cleared until morning. "Don't fret, child," said the Duchess. "Your mother is surely sleeping now. We'll get you there first thing tomorrow." Irene was given a good dinner as she sat by the fire, the moisture steaming off her clothes. The Duchess, meanwhile, got into her freshly ironed gown before the guests began arriving in their sleighs. So everyone was very happy to see Irene and pretty impressed that she had come all that way by herself. And you can see she looks pretty proud of herself as well. And there's too much snow on the road, so she's going to stay at the palace. And you can see that she's eating a fabulous dinner by the fire while two possibly new friends wait for her. And I'm looking at that. I'd like to eat that ice cream sundae at the Duchess's palace myself. What a wonderful ball it was. The Duchess in her new gown was like a bright star in the sky. Irene in her ordinary dress was radiant. She was swept up into dances by handsome aristocrats who kept her feet off the floor to spare her ankle. Her mother would enjoy hearing all about it. So the Duchess is wearing her beautiful dress, and even though Irene is in her normal regular dress, she feels magnificent, and all the fancy gentlemen at the party are asking her to dance, but they're holding her up because remember, she hurt her ankle. And you can see, is she having a good time? It looks like everybody is having a wonderful time. And Irene is just excited because she's going to be able to tell her mother all about it when she gets home. Early the next morning, when snow had long since ceased falling, Mrs. Bobbin woke up from a good night's sleep, feeling much improved. She hurried about and got a fire going in the cold stove. Then she went to look in on Irene. But Irene's bed was empty. She ran to the window and gazed out at the white landscape. No one was out there. Snow powder fell from the branch of a tree. "Where is my child?" Mrs. Bobbin cried. She whipped on her coat to go out and find her. When she pulled the door open, a wall of drift faced her. But peering over it, she could see a horse-drawn sleigh hastening up the path. And seated on the sleigh between two large footmen was Irene herself, asleep but smiling. Would you like to hear the rest? So Mama has slept really well and is woken up and she's feeling much better. But when she looks for her daughter, Irene, she's not there. She puts on her coat to go find her, and just as she opens the door, she sees Irene asleep and smiley happy coming up the driveway. Well, there was a bearded doctor in the back of the sleigh, and the Duchess had sent Irene's mother a ginger cake with white icing, some oranges and pineapple, and spicy candy of many flavors, along with a note saying how much she cherished her gown and what a brave and loving person Irene was, which, of course, Mrs. Bobbin knew even better than the Duchess. So you can see that the Duchess sent a doctor and lots of goodies and a note saying how much she loved everything. And that is the end, ladies and gentlemen, of the story Brave Irene. I hope you really enjoyed this story, Brave Irene. And if you did, please hit that thumbs up button at the bottom of the page. If you are already a subscriber, thank you so much. Your support really means a lot to me. If you're not a subscriber yet, click that subscribe button down here. And don't forget to click the bell so that you're notified when there's new content. I hope you really enjoyed this story. I know I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.